5、4、3、2、1。
Yelbuseya, and welcome to the SF in Translation podcast. I'm Rachel Cordasco.
And I'm Daniel Hauser.
And we are recording on Saturday, October 5th, 2019, and we will be discussing SF in Translation. That came out last month, September. And first, let's talk about what we've been reading. What have you been reading, Daniel?
So I am currently reading the 10,000 Doors of January.
Ooh.
And enjoying that so far. And I just finished We Cast a Shadow, by Maurice, Carlos Ruffin.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
so that I'll be writing a review on for Strange Horizons.
Very cool.
And 10,000 Doors of January by Alex Harlow. I probably will put that on Skiffy and Fanny, I think.
Oh, I've heard, I listened to the Coode Street podcast, and they, Jonathan Strahan often talks about Alex Harlow. Do you like, is it like good stuff? I've never read anything.
It is. I read a short story by her in Shimmer magazine back before, a while back, and just really loved that short story. I don't even remember what it was, but it was the first thing I kind of encountered by her, and so that sort of cemented her name in my brain. And then thereafter, I read some things by her I enjoyed, some I weren't my cup of tea. But when I saw that this novel was coming out by Red Hook, I kind of jumped on the opportunity to try to read that. And I think Paul reviewed it for one of the sites that he reviews for as well. But yeah. I'm about halfway through it now. And so it's a portal fantasy about a young woman who kind of grows up in a house of a benefactor while her father's out like on archaeological missions for this rich guy. And there's, hints that the archaeological kind of things that they're after are also kind of enter into sort of the mystical, magical kind of realms, aspects of it. And that's what she's beginning to discover. And the book is told from her point of view, but then also she discovers this book called The 10,000 Doors of January about like the existence of portals to other worlds. And so the book is split between those two points of views. And hers, at least, I absolutely adore. She just has a very strong voice, that I'm enjoying a lot.
Well, if it has to do with archaeology, I am all over it.
Yeah, they're after like artifacts basically of other cultures. So it takes place, turn of the century kind of age or right after. Cool. So yeah, early 1900s.
Cool. I'm loving this more and more.
So yeah, I'm enjoying the heck out of that. And I also just finished The Monster of I can't say this word. I always want to say Eldon, but it's Elendhaven. By Jennifer Geisbrecht. And so that's a novella that was put out by Tor.com. And so I'm guessing I'll do that on the Skiffy and Fanty booktube at some point. Cool. But in the meantime, it's a great kind of gothic, horror type tale to read. So it's perfect for, the October season.
Yes. People break out the Halloween, so early.
Yes.
I swear it was like 2 weeks ago we walked into the dentist's office and there's this giant, fuzzy, orange and black tarantula thing hanging on the wall.
Yes.
And I walked in and I was like, whoa!
Yeah, it was barely even into September and there was already a bunch of stuff out, I know. And today I just went to Trader Joe's and we were looking for these chips that are literally called like fall tortilla chips. And they're like, oh no, the season's done for them. And I'm like, it just...
What?
Is it even fall now? Like, maybe it just turned forward. Will be soon.
Yeah, I know. It's just nuts.
How is the season done for this?
I know. And you would think that, like, since my birthday is 4 days before Halloween, I'd be all like, yeah, Halloween. And it's like, I hate Halloween.
Aw.
But my kids have actually made me not hate it as much, so that's why I'm crocheting pumpkins. But anyway.
Oh, those are cute.
Oh, thank you.
So what have you been reading after all the things that I have?
Reading. Let's see. Well, since my youngest isn't really napping anymore, I don't have nearly as much time to read. So I am glacially making my way through Legend of the Galactic Heroes, Volume 9, which is called Upheaval. And I think last time we talked about, right? We talked about Haikasaru.
Yes.
Yeah. But then I found out not too long after that they are indeed publishing Volume 10.
Oh, good. Before they go out.
I mean, and that's called Sunset. And, I would really like to write something about the series for something. But we'll see if that happens. There's such...
Yeah, hopefully can.
Well, I mean, like, there's such a weird, like, lack of stuff out there about Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Like, not much written about it in terms of, like, either academic or otherwise. Very strange. I don't know. I mean, it's not like these books are not stylistically complicated at all. They're a little strange in some ways too, but it's really not for the style. It's just for the story. Like, it's a like space opera, like by definition, it's on a massive scale. The war scenes in space are actually like some of the best writing. But it's the way that it's written I always love, and I know there are several other books out there that do this too, but I love it when an author is talking about something that happened in the past. Like the person writing, the narrator is like, I'm writing this book about something that happened way in the past. But the events of the book themselves are like 300 years in the future for us. You know what I mean? So it's this weird, like, temporal shift that you're going through where you're like, okay, the narrator is so far ahead of us. And we're reading something they're writing like way in the future, but their past is still our future. And my brain just imploded. Anyway, so that's what.
So you have to do some time gymnastics,
right?
Have they adapted that into any other thing?
It's
so it's been adapted into like a movie or a cartoon or something along those lines. Anime,
I think so, because I think that's where when you Google Legend of the Galactic Heroes, it always comes up with with anime, and then you have to keep scrolling. To get to the stuff about the novel, right. Which reminds me, actually, I have been reading bits and pieces of this book that was put out by University of Minnesota Press called Robot Ghosts and Wired Dreams. And it is a really great kind of thorough study of written by professors who have kind of broken it into like half of the book is about Japanese prose, just like novels and stories and stuff, science fiction, and then the other half is about the anime and manga and how you really can't understand one without the other if you're looking at it from American culture, because that's how we have absorbed so much Japanese SF is through those media, which is weird because I never read manga, and I think I've seen one like anime movie. I mean, I never, I have no idea. So
I haven't either. I've never cared for them. So
yeah, and a lot of people that was like a huge part of their childhood.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so I can talk about like
particularly college students today.
Yeah.
Or at least of recent, I don't know about currently, but like maybe the past 5 years.
Yeah, and like Pokemon, and again, I was never into Pokemon, and then those what were they called? Those little pocket things that digital like pocket things that you had to keep alive.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot. I don't know.
I can't think.
One of my friends had it, and I was like, I don't understand what you're even talking about. But yeah, anyway, it's just lots of Japanese SF going on. But I've also been reading the stories that have come out in September.
Yes.
So, if for listeners who have been looking at the SFT website, because, you know, I always do the out this month posts in the very beginning of the month, and then as things change, you know, as publication dates change, or as things come out, I don't necessarily go back and add things back in. So the out this month September is lacking a couple of books. So I have here a novel that came out in September, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, from the Japanese, and a collection from translated from the Hebrew called Fly Already, but also finally this science fiction spelled Fiktion by Franz Fuhrmann, not sure how to pronounce that, from the German, has been like bumped 5,000 times, but it finally, according to the internet, finally came out in September. It's kind of like a Cold War. I'm trying to remember what they say it's a steampunk takedown of the logic of the Cold War, and it's like a whole bunch of connected stories. And that's from Seagull. And then, of course, there is a highly anticipated book, Vampiric, Tales of Blood and Roses from Japan, from Kurodahan. And it's Japan's own vampire tradition.
Nice.
So cool. So I have that. I have a copy of that, and I'm so excited to read it. Can't wait. So wanted to.
Do you have copies of any of the others?
No, I do not.
No. Okay.
Nope. Because, you know, still, people are like, I'm like, can I get a copy, a review copy? People are like, oh, you want a review copy? Oh, you know, your website is called SF in Translation. You know, it's like, shouldn't I be on your list, man?
List, yeah.
Whatever. I'm happy to buy stuff too. So, I mean, I can buy a certain number of books before my husband starts saying like, excuse me.
I actually looked into Fly Already.
Yeah.
At Barnes and Noble today. And the price had me hesitate.
What?
Because well, it's a small hardback.
Yeah. Oh, it's a hardback?
And so, it's a
it.
hardback, and they're like $30 now.
Wait a minute.
And
Seriously?
So if it's,
oh, forget it. I'm not buying
like
that.
$28.99.
Oh, hell no.
Which I'm all about supporting authors and supporting publishers,
but
there's only so much you can do. And
no, that's crazy.
When it's something, it's a short collection. It looks good, but it's, when I think about it, it's like, I'm going to spend maybe an hour or two reading it because it's not that long. And that's like watching basically the length of a movie is what it would be. And so that's a lot to pay just to go see.
No, it really is.
Like if it was a huge hardback or something, okay.
Right.
But,
no.
Yeah.
This is a collection of stories. And like this guy, like I know the name, but I've never read him before. And I'm not paying $30 for a collection of stories by someone I don't really know.
Right.
Know what I mean?
If it were somebody that I knew, I wouldn't hesitate.
Like if it's
as much.
Ted Chiang, like I will hand over the money. You know what I mean? But
it's hard to just invest that when you don't really have a good sense. So
$30.
Maybe I'll find it at a library or wait for a paperback or.
It's not even a novel. It's just.
But it looks promising. It has. I mean, I don't always go by blurbs on books and such. But it has George Saunders on there talking about it. Right. And so I I do have respect for George Saunders.
Yeah, he's cool.
Writing and such, and so it looks intriguing to me, but yeah.
Not intriguing enough.
So I was hoping that you had a copy that you'd be able to like say, nope. Yes, it is really good. And
they're not sending me one, I'm sure. It's also translated by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
several
5 people, which makes me like, what? Really? Okay.
I think it's because many of them were probably published before in literary magazines of various types, is my guess. And, you had different people publish or translate the different stories.
And these are pretty well known, like Sandra Silverstein. I've seen her name a lot. Jessica Cohn, of course. I'm trying to think. Okay, if it was like, someone put out an omnibus of Elizabeth Vonnerberg, which would just like, I would die and then I'd come back to life and I'd be like,
take my money.
Take my money. Oh my God. That'd be great. So yeah. Okay. So in September, there was one, Chinese story in Clark's World, a Chinese story and a Korean story in Samovar, which is always fun. Yes. And then 4 in Future Science Fiction Digest, from Russian, Chinese, Swedish, and Italian. Future SF is so good.
Yes.
So I had the chance to read the Clark's World, the Samovar, and one of the Future Science Fiction Digest stories. I haven't read the other 3 yet.
Same with me. I don't know if I've even taken the time yet to get to because I've purchased the issues, but I don't think I've got an issue 4 yet. So I'll have to get that to be able to cover the other 3 stories.
Yeah, the other 3 will be out soon.
Right.
But it's
over the course of the next month or so.
Right.
They
so
get released.
When Zhang Fengyan, he was the one who wrote Lord of Rivers, right?
Oh, that I don't recall. I remember that title, but I don't
think that. Yes, that was him. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Lord of Rivers. That was amazing. So I assume that that
you're looking forward to that one.
Yeah, that'll be good. Okay, so how would you pronounce it? Amerville? Amerville, yeah, by Bella Han, so translated from Chinese by the author. In Clark's World, I am going to admit that I read maybe a third of it and then was like, boring, and moved on.
I started skimming.
I
don't know what it is with Neil and liking stories that are bloated.
So, like
it's
what?
Just going for length, or
it's like 9,000 words, right?
I don't know as they say what the word count is
at the bottom,
on the website.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Normally I read most of them on my Kindle, but because I read these well before I get around to reading the whole issue.
Yeah, this is 9,000
I don't
words.
see it as easily. Okay. Yeah. It's really nicely written.
Yeah,
I mean, and it has, so it takes place a few decades in the future, and Ava is this Chinese woman, and this is a name that's an English name that's sort of given to her by her company. And so I don't recall that we get her actual name.
Okay.
But she is, living her life, but really she's not thrilled or very involved in her own proper life. She exists both at work and at home within sort of like the digital world, within a dream kind of scape of avatars and, artificial reality immersion. And in this, she is also grown obsessed with this actor named Danny M. Amour. And she's having a hard time deciding if he's really a real person or something that's purely digital, but starts, getting more and more obsessed with this person, this actor, this guy, and living a life in sort of the digital realm that's associated with him, to the detriment of her own life. So the thing that I liked about it is that all those words of the story do add a lot in terms of just details about what the commercial and sort of landscape of this future society is, and the technology that they have. But at the same time, it really does move at a snail's pace.
Yes.
In terms of development or pace. So the pacing has real kind of issues. So I ended up skimming eventually because I was just getting it's like it's still going.
Well, like I said, I didn't finish it, but you want to hear what my favorite line is?
What's that?
My favorite line in the story is, "What kind of freak would buy a life-size sheep?" Yeah.
Yes.
It was, I mean, it was a lot. Okay. It's totally like the line from Amadeus where they say it's too many notes. It's just,
yes, it's
too many words. And you know me, like I was the kind of kid who was like, oh, we're supposed to read, all of, Les Miserables in 10th grade on it, it's just that like now where I have like even less time to read than ever, I just, I'm not it was just going on and on and on. And I'm like, nope, I'm not going to spend more time because I'm already not, and I really like kept going. And then I was like, no.
Yeah, it just didn't seem essential to the themes of the story as far as I could tell from them. But
I mean,
the first paragraph actually sums up the entire story.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like read the first paragraph and you got it. And the first paragraph's beautifully written and the rest is kind of just added detail.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, again, I don't think length matters when it's a story that you're really like drawn to. But but I did enjoy the others more. I'd say I actually enjoyed, with each story I read, I enjoyed them more. So the Samovar is published for two very interesting,
yes,
very
they are.
different stories. So Guest from the Sky by Ji Yoon, translated by Yi Izzy Yu and John Yu Branscombe, was a very, very short story.
Yes.
By
about 1,000 words.
Yeah. And the author lived during the 18th century, I think.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of fascinating stuff. I found even more fascinating than the story itself, the actual context around it, which Strange Horizons gives, which is really helpful. So,
the notes following it I found more interesting than the story itself.
It's so cool. So so Ji Yoon lived 1724 to 1805. And he was a scholar and a writer and a politician and edited the Qing Dynasty Imperial Library. And he wrote like a whole 1,200 pieces that were collected that were basically about his experiences with the supernatural and his investigations of kind of supernatural events that his friends and family told him about. So Guest from the Sky is from 1798, and it's just this like strange story about a fairy who they kind of say like her like minions come and basically like jump on this guy while he's walking down the road, and they're like, "We want to take you to our mistress." He's like, "Okay." And so they take him to the mistress, and she's like, "Hey, like, let's like get together." And he's like, no. And so then they send him back, and then later, like, they get him again, and she's like, much more humble. So like, she's not like first time she was all like blingy and stuff. And the next time they bring him to her, she's much more like humble and modest. And she's like, how about now? And he's like, all right. And and then it's like, that's all it took. And then next thing you know, he's like, he gets sick and he dies. And, you know, you're like, okay. But the translator's note is fascinating because it talks about the counterpart, the Western counterpart to the fairy tale tradition. And then connects it to the alien abduction genre in the West. And I'm just like, what? Like, this is crazy. This is really interesting. So, yeah, classical Chinese fairy stories and alien abduction tales. So that was right up my alley. I really enjoyed learning about that. What did you think about it?
It makes sense now because I didn't note when the author had lived, but it's written very much in a similar style to other sort of weird tales of that era from the Western world of like a guy relating a weird letter he gets from a friend, and
exactly.
then you end up relating all the weird shit that happened to that guy.
Right. That's why I looked him up. I was like, what
okay.
did this guy live? Yeah.
So it sort of has that vibe to it, the sort of like straightforward tale of a weird, horrific kind of thing happening. And then after reading it, like I made the connections with fairies, of course, because they even put fairy after the Chinese term within the translation. But then as I'm reading the end, I was like, oh, this sounds like an episode of Ancient Aliens now, where you just have the equation of fairy tale mythology to alien abduction and UFO, which made sense because the whole thing starts with him seeing orbs in the sky.
Right.
And they both in Western tradition and apparently Chinese, there's a very strong connection between sort of fairies and what we'd now call ETs. So it wasn't new to me, I guess. And so I found it interesting that was also the case in China.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I didn't find the story to be like earth shattering or anything.
No.
It was an interesting kind of, marker or historical marker.
Piece
or
of
cultural
SFT
marker.
history.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, it also was making me think of, I love these kind of cultural connections, in history, but also, one of the reasons why I love the Stargate series, because it brings together, Egyptology, ancient Egypt and sci-fi,
right.
I mean, it's like they got together.
A match made in heaven.
Huh?
A match made in heaven.
Exactly.
Literally,
it's like they got together these people and were like, okay, what can we make that would make Rachel basically just like salivate? Okay, so ancient Egypt meets science fiction. I mean, I remember seeing the movie in theaters, the Stargate movie, and I was pretty young. I was maybe 10, 12. And we went because one of my brothers wanted to see it, and oh my god.
Yeah, I loved the heck out of that movie.
Mind blown.
I actually just rewatched it recently. I don't think I've seen it since I was, younger, whenever the heck. I might have even been in high school when it came out.
Now I need to know. Stargate
94
movie.
Or later?
94. Yes. So I was 12.
So,
yeah.
All right. I was in either junior high or just starting high school.
Yeah. It made my mind go kaplooey. But yeah, so that kind of thing is super cool. Now, the interesting thing the translators note is also that there is a book from 1969 called Passport to Magonia, From Folklore to Flying Saucers. And there's another book from 2016 called The Supernatural, Why the Unexplained is Real. These are very interesting. So this was just, I was not expecting this. I was just expecting a story. I was interested in the content warnings.
Oh, I never even look at them.
The content warnings are disregard for personal autonomy. That I was like, what? Then when I read the story, I understood. Abduction, basically.
Yeah.
Death and dying and vomit. There's vomit, you guys.
Oh, I can't imagine what the warnings were for the head then.
Right? Okay, wait. I looked at those too. I just clicked on that. Let me see.
Strange Horizons
disregard
overboard
for
in these
personal
things.
autonomy, blood, body transformation, childbirth, death, dying, and murder. Yep, basically. So yeah, the head. I can't read about, okay, I've had 3 kids. They've all been in diapers. I've potty trained them all.
You've seen bodily functions.
Yeah, bodily functions, man. It just makes me nauseated. But I read the whole thing because it was, I mean, it's a good story. And,
it is.
Anton Herr he's great. Talk to him on Twitter a lot. He's a great translator. And I thought that this story was almost kind of like a counterpart to Guest from the Sky, almost like a modern fairy tale. It was kind of written like that too. It's like, none of them have names. It's, it's just like mother, and son or daughter or whatever. But yeah, what did you think about
the husband?
Why don't you tell us what the head is about?
I'm still thinking about it to a large extent. A woman is, unfortunately, I read it while I was eating lunch. That was not a good idea.
No.
So a woman goes to the bathroom and she gets up and is surprised to see this disformed head type thing peeking out from the toilet that begins speaking to her, saying, "Hi, mother," or basically calling her mother. Mm-hmm. And so she gets understandably kind of freaked out and tries to get rid of it, but the thing keeps coming back. And explains that it's from her, and so it's of her creation and is being formed. And as time goes on, it's growing larger and larger, and she just can't get rid of it. And so, at the same time, she tries to sort of deal with it by getting a husband. And then but the husband doesn't really love her or anything. It's just kind of she thinks the marriage will. I wasn't clear on how that related to somehow getting rid of this, creation in her toilet.
I think it was because she quit her job, right? Because she saw it at her job.
Right.
And then her family was like, well, if you don't have a job, better get married.
You better get married. But then it kind of went away for a while after she got married, and they were on their honeymoon, and eventually she had her own actual, baby and had a child. But that family never really had much of a connection with them either. So there's a lot of theme in it of sort of pain and rejection. Mm-hmm. But how all of those kind of relate to one another within the sort of fable of this poop creature that ends up basically taking her place. Mm-hmm. And then there's also there's a theme of, disregarding the old for the new.
Yeah.
And casting the old aside for the new. So there's lots of interesting themes in there. I'm just not entirely sure if they all cohere together in it.
Yeah.
But the weirdness is just dealt with so matter-of-factly that it's almost humorous in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like the story a lot. I just still don't quite know what to make of it.
Yeah, well, so I'm trying to find... Okay, so a really great part is in the center, the middle of it, where the daughter is a high school student, and she's like, "Mom, did you see my uniform necktie?" And Mom's like, "Oh, I hung it on the doorknob." And then the daughter's like, now this is a direct quote. "Okay. Oh, by the way, I saw a person's head in the toilet yesterday." And then the mother's like, "Did you now? What happened?" "I just flushed it down the toilet." "Good. More stew?" "I'm good. But about that head, I think I've seen it before." It's just this whole, and every time she brings it up, if she'll bring it up to her husband or something, her husband will be like, we'll just flush it. Like what, you know?
Yes.
The two things that stood out to me, were the first thing, what you said about, replacing the old with the young,
Mm-hmm.
which, you know, I wish I knew more about, Korean culture. I wonder if there's something in here about, you know, about, like revering elders, you know, and, kind of a shift in that with the shift, you know, that's been going on around the world towards cities, toward the new,
Technology.
yeah, the new and the young, you know, I don't know. I don't want to say anything that's, you know, just totally wrong, but like, I'm wondering if this has something to do um, with the culture, and, you know, kind of like what's been changing in Korean culture over the 20th century. The other thing I've thought about, and again, I can't extrapolate just from a few things, but this story, and then I read, The Vegetarian by, Han Kang,
Yes.
Kang, whatever. And then, what was the other? Oh, yes. And then the collection, Flowers of Mold.
Yes. That you just reviewed.
Yes, I did. That was for World Lit Today. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's like, wait a minute. Yeah. So in all three, Vegetarian is kind of like, it's like a collection, it's like 3 link stories. Flowers of Mold is just separate stories, and then this is, a standalone story. And in all of them, I have to say, the marriages are not great. Like,
Yeah.
it's often the husband is portrayed as very matter of fact and cold and distant.
Mm-hmm.
And the women are the focus of the stories, and they're just kind of losing it. Like, I mean, one's seeing a head in her toilet, one is thinking that the neighbor is trying to replace her, and maybe she is, you know. One thinks she's turning into a plant. I mean, it's fascinating, and I wonder why what is this surrealist, bizarre, kind of funny but sad type style that we're seeing?
How does that culturally link?
Yeah, like why do we keep seeing that? Is this what we're seeing? And this is written by a woman as well. Is this what we're seeing because this is what's being translated? Is this something that's larger, like in Korean literature? Are women being published more in Korean literature now? It's just, there's so many questions I have, and I know Samovar, they do, you know, interviews, with authors and translators, and I'm hoping that they will come out with, an interview with either, Bora Chung or Anton, about this story, because
otherwise ask him on Twitter, because
I will.
I'm curious as well.
I will. He's so great.
Or maybe he'll do an interview.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I should just have him on here. Yeah. I was thinking, like, who should I do need to do, some more interviews, but yeah, this was fascinating. I really want to know what's going on in, Korean SF. I don't even know what to call it, because it's not science fiction.
No,
it's not fantasy. It's the surrealist.
It's like
magical
fairy tale.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of, I don't know. But that was Samovar. So good work, Samovar. They're just, every issue is just, I enjoy.
They have things unexpected always, it seems. So, yeah.
Are they the ones that said that they're having a Brazilian SF issue? Was that Samovar? I don't know. But from what I saw, or was it,
remember at least.
Or was it Strange Horizon? I don't know. Anyway, one of them said they were going to have a Brazilian SF issue, but I wasn't clear if it was written in English. Like, if it was just from Brazil but written in English.
Right.
Or translated from Portuguese. I didn't see anything about translation, so I'm going to assume that it was just written in English. But anyway, that seemed pretty cool. All right, so future SF Digest, high quality stuff. So I don't know about you, but I'm totally gonna have nightmares from The Building Atop the Hill.
Yes.
By Alexander Bachilo, translated from the Russian by Alex Schwartzman, who was also the editor of the publication. Yeah.
Really? No, this wasn't nightmare inducing for me.
You know why? Because there were kids involved. I hate these stories that have kids there. Like,
yeah.
And like bad things happening. I'm like, no, like, because then I'm imagining what it would be like being there. And it was just a chilling story.
It is.
What does it remind you of? Because I feel like something in the back of my head is like, it's just like this other story. And I can't remember. Did this remind you of any like other novel or story?
I don't know about anything in particular, but it
it
definitely reminded me just in general. It just seemed like a kind of generic post-apocalyptic story of, people struggling to survive or escape something when society breaks down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And just seeing like the ugliness of lots of people and how they will take advantage of each other, or how they like try to show themselves as being the one that everybody else needs now in this situation, or try to prove their worth. And sort of the desperation of refugees and such. So globally, yeah, it seemed very familiar to me. But
yeah,
there's no like one story that I was like, oh yeah, it reminds me of that story.
I feel like it might be reminding me of a Strugatsky story or novel. Because this is very, it just has that kind of, I don't know, that kind of feeling to it of yeah, like this, I mean, the story definitely, kind of this was the story that said something about the building, right? About Khrushchev's massive housing projects.
Yes.
These tall apartment buildings were called candles, and we learned a lot about these in my Russian classes. And just about, when it's kind of like the post World War II in America, Hooverville, where there are all these, well, not Hooverville, I'm sorry. What was it where they were throwing up houses so quickly, and they gave them some sort of nickname? There was just so much housing that they were just like putting them together like crazy. So, and they all kind of looked the same and stuff. So this I could picture it, because I was like, okay, this is like one of those places.
Yes.
And what I love about this story is that you don't know what's going on. They're like, passengers. And then they're like something about refugees. And you're like, oh, like, what does that mean? And you still don't know what's going on. And then they go
because at first it's just this couple with a kid sleeping as they ride the tram through the city. And
you're like, and so then the boy has to go to the bathroom. Or, and then like they go into that building, and it says the lobby was covered in graffiti, simple messages, and you're like, whatever, graffiti. And then they say, someone plus someone else equals a heart skewered by an arrow.
And then they mention the aliens.
Of course, the ubiquitous death to the aliens. And you're like, what? Yes. And that just reframes the entire thing.
Yes.
I thought that was beautifully done. I love, because you're like, death to the who? Like, and you never meet, you know what? I know why. It reminds me of the Strugatskys. Yeah. You never meet the aliens.
No, correct.
Very Strugatsky.
Because it's not really a sci-fi tale.
No,
like it's just a tale about people. And it's just, the sci-fi, it doesn't even have to be aliens. It can be anything, really.
It's this feeling, I feel like it's almost like a cosmic horror, but without the, like, gross, Lovecraftian creature.
Yes,
you know what I
mean? Well, where it kind of goes towards the end, though, too, you definitely then have, like, yes, that has to have the...
Yeah.
There's that cosmic aspect to it that is there. Yes, correct.
I had such a visceral, like, reaction to the story that I was just, like, thinking, like, how awful it would be. And then I'm thinking, like, these people just have one kid. Like, can you imagine if you have more kids? And I'm just like, I can't even think about this.
And some of the people there left their kids behind.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's so disturbing. But it's a great story. Now, I am going to ask you, and you need to give me an answer. Are you ready to give me an answer? I need to know.
Before you do that, the one thing I just wanted to say was that I'm glad I started reading it before realizing or seeing that the whole issue of Future Science Fiction Digest, this issue, is apparently just about alien invasion. Yeah,
that's
because
true.
It was nice not knowing that as I began the story. But
this is a very good point. Here's my question. Okay, so spoiler. So for anybody who hasn't read this story, I'm about to spoil it. Did the building just like blow up? Is that what I mean, it's not actually a spaceship, right?
I think it leaves it completely open, at least from my interpretation.
I need
that
closure,
it could be
Daniel.
I like the fact that you can kind of like them. They're faced with this choice, and they're faced with no choice,
right?
And things don't seem quite right. Like, is this really going to get us to space? Is this really going to be our escape? And there's kind of like rumors going around of what it is or who's trying to save them, but nobody's really certain. And so I think that's kind of what's wonderful about it, that you can choose to believe that, yes, they're all going to be saved, or you're going to choose to believe that, like, yeah, they're all dying.
Well, see, here's what made me think that it's probably the latter, because they said... Because otherwise, why else put that other story about that guy leaving his family behind? They said something like, for every 2 people that a human kills, they get to survive.
They get to, yes.
And I got the sense that the what did they call him? The manager? The guy who was super. That I got the sense that he was packing as many people into the building.
To save others.
As like a, or like his offering to the aliens. Like, I don't know. I mean, like, it was I was like, no, don't end. Don't.
Yes, definitely.
So that was great. And like I said, the one by Wan Zhang is probably awesome. And Davide Camparsi is available in English. I don't think I've read anything by him, but he's one of the kind of few Italian SF writers who is available in English, and Michael Colbert does a lot of Italian SF translations now. He does a good job, so I think it's going to be good.
It'll be good.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, cool.
So those were the stories.
I did get some other ones from Toshio Kamai. And one of them I did want to point out. And so it'll be in the reviews that I sent to you to put up.
Okay.
And so it's titled A Ladder to the Moon by Naoko Awa, translated from the Japanese by Toshio Kamai. And it's in an online thing that, like many of his stuff, I've never heard of it, but it's called Cosmic Roots and Eldritch Stories. And so it's a part of a series that they've done called Stories for Young People from 4 to 400. And so this is apparently an author who's a well-regarded children's author of modern fairy tales. So kind of continuing our theme of fairy tales this month. Fairy tales are not my thing at all.
Yeah, not really my thing either. Yeah.
But this, for those that do like fairy tales, I want to point this out to you or to those listeners that do like that, because this seems to be a sort of classic Japanese fairy tale author that there is this translation of available now, and it seems like it flows beautifully. And it also is accompanied by some really wonderful artwork by both old and modern artists. And so it's about a young girl who is given a rabbit, and she's warned not to let it escape on the night of a full moon, for moons and rabbits are very fond of one another, and they might go off together. So, like most fairy tales, okay, sure, rabbits and moons like each other. Like, for me, that just is weird and makes no sense, but within the context of the story and the children's tale, it's a beautiful one. And so, those of you that do really like fairy tales, I wanted to alert you to that. And so, A Ladder to the Moon. And I mean, I do like rabbits, and so I love art, and I like moons.
Yeah.
And so
cool.
I did, the artwork. It includes some like, not tapestry. What are they called?
Etches or
I can't even think of the term now. Well, some of them are prints, yeah, but like the prints that are hung on the walls and such in both China and Japan.
Screens.
Yeah, there's some artwork from,
cool.
Older ones that are in museums and such in there to accompany the text of rabbits.
Well, the title makes me think of, Italo Calvino's, Cosmocomics and, his modern fairy tale approach, I'm kind of, as long as there's kind of some, science fictional element mixed with a fairy tale, like I'm interested. But yeah, the fairy tale thing kind of makes, I kind of get like, oh, okay, when they don't even have a name, although in this story I see that she does have a name, so that's good.
Yes. And the rabbit has a name too.
Rabbit, oh, that's cool. Cool. Yeah, this is it's a very interesting month. Lots of fairy tale-ish stuff. Yeah, so October is shaping up to be pretty good. The only book I have coming out that I know of is Cixin Liu's Supernova Era.
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell you, I have now read the whole 3-body trilogy, Ball Lightning and Supernova Era, and I am a confirmed Cixin Liu fangirl. I love him so much. He is so great.
Someday I really have to read just to see what all the ado is about.
Good Lord, you need to. It is I love it. I think you're going to be kind of annoyed because Ball Lightning and Supernova Era are kind of like or especially Ball Lightning is like takes science and just kind of like messes around with it, and those of us who don't know who didn't really listen in science class, or we're cool with it, but it's like people who do know, chemistry and biology and are going to be like, what? That's impossible. You know what I mean? So, people get really annoyed with.
I can get that way with biology sometimes, but, for the most part, I don't. I'm actually not one for hard sci-fi. Particularly I'm all for bending the rules of physics and such, so.
Yeah, I'm cool with it. I love that stuff. But, like, people are like, oh, it makes no sense. And I'm like, it doesn't? Like, I don't know. But anyway, I love him. He's great. And I am on that train. And usually I'm like, if everybody likes something, I don't like it. But I'm sorry. I love everything he writes. And already we've got 3 stories from Clark's World. How many? 1 Chinese, 2 Korean, something from the Spanish in the Dark magazine. And, got some reviews up and.
Yeah, there's quite a bit.
Yeah. It's gonna be good times. And we're probably, a lot of people are focusing on horror now because, of course, it's October.
Mm-hmm.
I know something recently came out, horror in women writing horror in translation, and I forget the site. And then also Speculative City, which is a webzine asked me to write something for them about the occult in translation. So that is up. I think that went up a couple weeks ago. And I basically wrote about, I didn't think there was much. And then of course I started digging and I find out there's a ton, of occult SFT. But the main thing I wrote about was, Rodolfo Martinez's The Wisdom of the Dead, which is a Sherlock Holmes meets Lovecraft, written in Spanish in the 90s and translated by Rodolfo recently, and then published last year. Was it last year or this year? Can't remember. Let's see. The Wisdom of the Dead. No, this year. It came out in March from Sportula. And yeah, so that was pretty fun. It was interesting to write about. So if you're interested in that, that's at Speculative City. And yeah, we're getting all kinds of good stuff coming out the rest of the year. And of course, everybody needs to let me know what else is coming up, especially in 2020. I already have that tab going.
The list is going?
2, 4, 6, 8 so far. So, very exciting. Yeah, so what are your plans for October? Anything specific you're excited to start reading?
No, nothing specific yet. I've got still a big pile of to be read and a big pile of reviews to write, so hopefully I can start catching up on more of those. But
yeah, I hear ya. Like I said, I'm finishing Galactic Heroes Volume 9, and then I cannot wait to read the Japanese Vampire collection.
That does sound interesting.
Oh, so good. I love it. Kurodahan, just, yeah, good stuff. They know what to, like how to put these anthologies together. And it's just great stuff. It's consistently great. So I'm looking forward to that. So Japanese vampires, yay. Yeah. So that's about it for now. Everybody, listeners, remember to, send me all your recommendations and texts and tweets and messages about like, hey, did you see, the SFT in this magazine or that one? Like, I can't check all of them. So I look forward to everybody's, input for that, and let me know what you're reading and interested in. You can get in touch with me, at rachel@sfintranslation.com, on Twitter at RCORDAS, and on Facebook at the SFT page. And where can people contact you, Daniel?
They can contact me on Twitter at Read1000Lives, and they can find me at Canisius College as well.
Awesome. And you're like, you're a legit science person, so
I try to
be. We got the legit science person and the literary studies person.
Yes.
So we got everything team. Covered. Yeah. It works.
And if there's publishers out there, send us the books so that we can talk about the novels too.
I mean, wouldn't that
not
make
just
sense?
The short stories always.
Right?
Because, right now I have a big to read pile, and though I do have lots of reviews now to write for SFT, I have no SF&T to read at all.
Yeah, well, we gotta talk to these publishers.
That's unfortunate. I did review Next Human, though, within the last month. Yes, and so I absolutely adored, so.
That was great. Everybody read that review.
And I'm hoping now I can actually do that in class in the future, too, so.
That'll be awesome. Yay. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for listening, and happy reading, and we will talk to you hopefully next month.
Thank you for listening to Speculative Fiction in Translation. a member of the Skiffy and Fanty Network, hosted by Rachel Cordasco and Daniel Hauser. If you would like to contact the Speculative Fiction in Translation podcast directly, please do so at rachel@sfintranslation.com, or you can visit sfintranslation.com. Additionally, you can find Rachel on Twitter at rcordas and Daniel at read1000lives. To find out more about the podcasts on the Skiffy and Fanty Network, please visit us at skiffyandfanty.com. If you would like to support the network, you can do so at patreon.com/skiffyandfanty. To keep up to date on everything that is happening at the Skiffy and Fanty Network, please visit skiffyandfanty.com/newsletter. The music from this podcast is No Disclaimer by Jesse Spillane. To find more about this music, please visit freemusicarchive.org.